I think it's important that I start this video with a disclaimer. I do not think Dino Crisis is a bad game. Now that I've got that out of the way, you can actually wait until the end of the video before disliking it. Oh, so you're going to go ahead and dislike it now, eh? Well, I hope that felt good, buddy. I hope you find happiness in your life. Dino Crisis has a lot of enjoyable elements, and depending on what you look for in a horror game, you might have a blast with it. Personally, I think people who are big fans of puzzle games, or even point-and-click adventure games, will get the most out of Dino Crisis. As a slow-paced puzzle game with occasional moments of action, Dino Crisis is a success. But as an old-school survival horror game, Dino Crisis fails so miserably in every area that I'm genuinely shocked that so many people still consider it a classic. Dino Crisis was released in the summer of 1999 and was directed by the godfather of survival horror, Shinji Mikami. For Dino Crisis, Mikami wanted to move away from tired horror cliches, so zombies were out, dinosaurs were in. Unlike the creatures you'd face in Resident Evil, the dinosaurs in Dino Crisis were fast, intelligent, and vicious. They could even follow you into different rooms. Considering how limited the PS1 hardware was, the dinosaur models all look excellent and even move in a somewhat realistic fashion. Dino Crisis was a technological marvel for the time, but it's obvious that all the work that was poured into the visuals and artificial intelligence came at the cost of engaging gameplay. Dino Crisis follows the story of Regina, a member of the Secret Operation Raid Team, or SORT for short. At the beginning of the game, Regina, along with her 3 team members, Gail, Rick, and Cooper, are sent to a secret island to recover a scientist named Dr. Kirk, after another SORT member recently discovered that he is still alive, despite reports claiming that he died 3 months ago. Kirk has been conducting strange experiments on the island, and it doesn't take long for Regina and her team to realise something is amiss. Cooper gets separated from his team upon landing on the island and is quickly devoured by a T-Rex. He's basically the Joseph of this game, existing for no other reason than to introduce us to the creatures we'll be fighting. Regina and the others arrive safely at the facility, but quickly discover a dead body which has been torn in half. Seeing this poor man lying dead like this is almost too much for poor Regina to bear.
That's disgusting.
Well, I guess that's one way of putting it. I get the feeling that Regina isn't a very compassionate person and has a tendency to say inappropriate things sometimes.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting.
So anyways, a few moments later, Regina comes face to face with a velociraptor, and this moment is one of the game's best. You quickly discover that the raptor is too quick to shoot, and so your best option is to simply run. However, after making it through the gate to safety, this happens. Seeing an enemy follow you into another room might not seem like a big deal in 2019, but in 1999 this was almost revolutionary. All of a sudden, you could never be 100% certain you were safe when entering a new room. So once she loses the raptor, Regina is tasked with restoring power to the facility and finding Gail, who is currently nowhere to be found. That's as much as I'm going to talk about the story. Honestly, it's nothing special. You might laugh at a few of the lines, but the entire plot is completely predictable from start to finish. There are multiple endings, however, based on choices you make throughout the game, which is a nice addition and adds a bit of replay value to the title. But now I want to talk about the gameplay, because it's the whole reason I made this video to begin with. In many ways, Dino Crisis plays like a traditional old-school survival horror game. The game uses tank controls, much like the old Resident Evil games. You have limited resources, in a way, and enemies are lethal, with some being able to kill you with a single attack. However, there are some aspects to Dino Crisis' gameplay that haven't really been seen in a horror game before. Enemy AI was far ahead of anything seen in Resident Evil or Silent Hill. The dinosaurs rarely got caught on geometry and could even sometimes use the environment to their advantage, like when velociraptors would jump on tables instead of running around them. Dino Crisis was also the first survival horror game to feature a somewhat complex crafting system. Instead of just simply finding health and ammunition out in the world, you could sometimes mix certain items together to create various different types of ammunition and healing supplies. Obviously, crafting is a key element of practically all horror games at this point, but it was a pretty unique idea back in 1999. Dino Crisis uses fully 3D environments instead of pre-rendered backgrounds, like in Resident Evil, and this comes with both advantages and disadvantages. Since the game world is now fully real-time, this allowed the developers to do some cool stuff, like this scene where the camera follows Regina running from this T-Rex without ever cutting to another viewpoint. However, not using pre-rendered backgrounds comes at the cost of environmental detail. Compared to other 3D games from the time, like Resident Evil 3 or Final Fantasy 9, environments are incredibly simplistic in Dino Crisis, and there isn't a whole lot of environmental variety throughout the game. Dino Crisis pretty much takes place entirely in this one facility. Combat will feel very familiar to anyone who has played a Resident Evil or Silent Hill game in their lives. You have access to a few different weapons throughout the game, like a pistol, a shotgun that doubles as a dart gun, and a grenade launcher. However, ammo is a limited resource in Dino Crisis, so sometimes it makes more sense to simply run from your enemies, and this is where my problems with Dino Crisis begin. Firstly, running from enemies lacks any real tension, thanks to these laser grids that are scattered everywhere around the facility. These laser grids protect you from the dinosaurs, but what's even worse is that you can easily shoot your enemies through the lasers without ever worrying about them hurting you. And in the rare case that you actually run out of ammunition, you can simply wait for a dinosaur to run into the lasers, because it incapacitates them for roughly 5 seconds, giving you plenty of time to run past them. The laser grids are my biggest issue with the gameplay in Dino Crisis, but they are far from my only issue with this game. Let's talk about the game's difficulty, because I have no problem saying that Dino Crisis is one of the easiest survival horror games I've ever played. There are healing items everywhere, and you can easily craft more health should you run out. There's even an item called Resuscitation, which basically brings you back from the dead when you die. Yes, unlike practically every other old school survival horror game, dying in Dino Crisis doesn't send you right back to the main menu. You're instead sent a few minutes back with no punishment. It basically works as a checkpoint system. Should you run out of Resuscitation, don't worry. You're also given 5 continues, and only if you somehow run out of all of them are you then forced to load your previous save. Why did Capcom do this? What was wrong with Resident Evil's way of doing things? Dino Crisis is way too forgiving, to the point where I wouldn't even call the game a survival horror. Another problem I have with Dino Crisis is that it simply isn't scary at all. The game doesn't know how to build tension correctly, and all of the game's jump scares are way too telegraphed. Take this scene for example. Regina is walking past this pipe when this happens. The problem with this scene is that you already know what's going to happen before it happens. Look at the camera slowly panning over to the area. Why would it do that if a dinosaur wasn't going to appear from there? Unlike Resident Evil, where practically all of the jump scares are implemented into the gameplay, which makes them far more effective. Practically every scare in Dino Crisis is done through cutscenes, and are heavily telegraphed beforehand. It's incredibly disappointing. What's more is that many of these scary moments end with a cheap QuickTime event, where all you have to do is simply mash the buttons to escape. Instead of being thrown into a desperate situation, you're simply asked to press X a few times to escape. I really don't get it. But the main reason I don't consider Dino Crisis a survival horror game is because it doesn't want to be a survival horror game. It comes across as wanting to be a puzzle game with occasional horror elements. Let me talk you through the first hour or so of the game to explain what I mean. Almost as soon as you arrive in the facility, one of your first tasks is providing power to the area. You do this by partaking in a simple puzzle where you place batteries in the right order. Shortly afterwards, you have to crack a code to open this door. Almost immediately after that, you are asked to discover the combination to this safe. It's a clever puzzle, so I'll let it slide. A few minutes later though, you're asked to crack yet another code to open this door. This puzzle is then followed by yet another battery swapping section. Shortly after this, you're asked to place these pipes in the correct order in a surprisingly annoying puzzle. Literally 5 minutes later, you're having to clear a path for your teammate by moving these containers with a crane. And all of this is within the first 2 hours. It gets so much worse the further into the game you get. There are just too many fucking puzzles in Dino Crisis for me to consider it a survival horror game. The game shouldn't even be called Dino Crisis. It should be called Puzzle Crisis, with occasional dinos. Now don't get me wrong, I love puzzle games, but when I play a horror game, I want the horror to take center stage. Resident Evil and Silent Hill understood this. Yes, the games had puzzles, but they were used to break up the action and exploration. They were never the main attraction of those games. Overall, while I don't hate Dino Crisis, I don't think it's a great game, especially when you compare it against its amazing sequel. There are a lot of great ideas in Dino Crisis, but none of them are executed in a satisfying way. If you enjoy puzzle games or are a massive fan of dinosaurs, you will probably love Dino Crisis. But anyone who plays this game expecting a Resident Evil style experience is probably going to be severely disappointed. Hey guys, thanks for watching and disliking my video. If you somehow don't want me dead right now, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. And if you're feeling especially generous, you can even support me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Your support helps me create more videos like this that will probably lead to my death. So I really appreciate you guys. Happy Halloween to you, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.